Welcome to Sound Plus Doctrine, the podcast of Sovereign Grace Music, where we explore what the Bible has to say about music and worship in the church, and encourage those who plan, lead, and participate in their Sunday gatherings each week. Welcome to the Sound Plus Doctrine podcast. My name is David Zimmer.
My name is Bob Coughlin.
And we have a very special guest with us.
We do. Our first female guest on the podcast.
Yes.
Lacey Hudson.
Yes.
Not that we're against females in any way, but Lacey just happens to be.
Just to be clear, if you were confused.
We'll have other females on the podcast, but thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So great. Those of you who know something about Sovereign Grace Music would know you as a vocalist on our last few albums. And if they're looking at the credits for songs, they see you as you're a songwriter as well. Yeah. But you've been involved for quite a while, just in Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville. So when did you first come?
Yeah, so I moved to Louisville in January 2013 for Southern.
Okay.
And then knew that you all had planted a church here, and my dad said I should go.
Excellent.
Because I grew up on Sovereign Grace Music.
You grew up on Sovereign Grace Music. It just always makes me feel old. I grew up listening to Sovereign Grace Music. So I'm glad you did. And that's great.
That's so great.
So as a songwriter, I want to talk about songwriting, because you have been writing songs for how long?
Yeah, I would say like pretty seriously since high school.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And I remember first hearing one of your songs at like a songwriting, not a competition, but a workshop. And
yeah, Southern had like a songwriter, workshop thing for a weekend. And
that I participated in.
Yeah, you were one of the
that's cool.
songwriters they brought in, and yeah, that's when I presented one.
So then you started getting involved with the choirs here at the church, children's choir.
Yep.
And you actually got involved in the recording with doing the kids' choirs for Listen Up, Theology and Listen Up, two of our kids' albums.
Wow.
Yeah.
So led those.
Yeah, we would make little small kids' choirs.
That's awesome.
They were
The albums.
they were small.
Yeah.
And actually, before we start talking about songwriting, just a little bit of this history. The first vocal you sang was on a kid's album, Theology.
Yep.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Welcome In.
Oh, cool.
Beautiful. And then you served as a vocal coach on Prayers of the Saints. You didn't sing on the album, but you helped get parts together.
And did background vocals on the album.
And background vocals,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. So not a soloist, but we're very involved in that album. And then you sang on, I think, The Glorious Christ.
Yep.
Number of songs. And then wrote Worthy One. And then helped write a song, Christ Will Be My Hideaway. Sang on various renditions of that. But then the Christmas album, you ended up co-writing or writing 4 songs.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, it was
just
good.
to see your to see how your contribution has increased over the years.
Yeah, it's
and
so
then for the album that's coming out in March of 2022, you and I wrote a song together, and then you co-wrote with Lisa Clow another song. So you're contributing. It's great. So David was going to ask you some questions just about songwriting process. And take it away, David.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had other people on this podcast, Matt Boswell and Nate Stiff, where we've been able to ask them.
John Althoff.
And John Althoff,
Yep.
insights into their songwriting process, which I just think is fascinating, because we all have different ways of writing songs. So that's what I wanted to ask you about. When you're sitting down to write a song, are you thinking of writing alone, or do you like to collaborate more? What's your process in that whole thing?
Yeah, so I would say I do both. I think I started out doing more just solo songwriting. Still geared towards the church, and then writing, songs for kids' choirs, or sometimes I would co-write with Bob. But yeah, I did, I think, more stuff on my own. And then I think the more I've developed relationships with other writers in Sovereign Grace Music, enjoy doing co-writing as well.
That's so great.
Did you start writing worship songs? Like, has that always been your kind of MO?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really did a lot of art songs. I think it really was always just geared towards church, whether that was, a hymn format or more of like a worship type song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I know that people that listen to this podcast some of them write songs, and I get this question a lot of like, what do I do with the songs that I've written? And so could you speak to some people that might be listening and going, I feel I'm writing a lot of songs and I don't know who to give them to, what to do, could you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I have two thoughts that come to mind. One, I would say that it's something to do, like a lot of. So I think the more you write, the better you get. So I don't necessarily think like, oh, every song I write, I need to show to someone. So it's really like a
Could
muscle.
you repeat that? That would be real helpful for some people.
Yeah, every song I write, I don't need to show to someone. So yeah, just like getting into the habits of songwriting. But then also, I think this is one thing I love about Sovereign Grace Music is that it's writing for the church. And so then taking your songs to, your worship pastor or your worship team at church and saying, hey, here's what I've done. And I think the Lord's given me this gift. And, it may not be that we use it on a Sunday, but just wanting some feedback and ways to grow. So, yeah.
Yeah. How do you get better at songwriting? You say you do doing more of it, gets you at the habit of getting better at it. But
and you have gotten better, I think. I think your songwriting, in the time I've known you, has just really grown. I remember one of the first kids songs you wrote. Just work and saying, yeah, that's good, but maybe it could be strengthened a little bit. And you're a very thoughtful songwriter. But to answer,
so how what do you think has changed in sort of that growth process? Has it been feedback? Has it been listening to different artists, or what has been your process?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, feedback. So like I said, doing more and more co-writing, and just even like specifically Bob, just showing him a lot of my stuff and just saying, what's good, but what could be better.
And that's always been so easy because, you're obviously thinking about it, and I, anytime someone asks me for thoughts on a song, I mean, I recognize I'm not the world's best songwriter, but I do have thoughts. And that is really helpful to know when you ask for input, is to know this person might not be like, just the best songwriters in the world. But they have thoughts, and you want your song to land favorably on people. So when you've asked me for that and I've shared thoughts with you, you've both been quick to listen and then quick to say, well, yeah, to push back in some places. Yeah, I think, but never in cool. No, this is... God gave me this phrase, and I have to use this phrase. But I've appreciated that you have both, because you need both.
That's so great.
Here's what some songwriters do: they say, "Oh, that's so great, that's so great," and like inside they're going, "I really don't like it. I really don't like it," and they'll come back to you, a month later, and it'll still be the same. Because that's it. Yeah, I didn't like it. But they never told you. It's just, I don't like it. They acted like they liked it, but they don't.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just appreciate the way you think through that.
Yeah.
Well, I just think at the root, there's a common desire for, okay, I want this to be gospel-centered and serve the church. And so if those are the most important things, then, you're more open to feedback. But I can say like, hey, I don't think that's the clearest, or like, let's work together to make your version of my version even clearer.
That's so good.
Your version of my version of my version of your version of their version and his version.
That's really good. And like you said, if you're with writers where you have a unified vision, it's like so much easier. It doesn't feel like all my ideas have to be the ones. You have a common desire to serve the church through the songs you're writing, and chase down ideas. Like I think in the little bit of songwriting we've done, it's just like how to chase good ideas. You're trying to find it together. It's not like first one there. It's like
it's not.
It's like, oh, that's really good, and we can tweak this and change this and so I appreciate that, but just the humility, Lacey, that you just you have in not holding it too tightly, but also the ability to push back if you have opinions.
Yes.
That's good.
And there's been a lot of patience. This is just taking time to honor you. You have had a lot of patience just, writing, but nothing's going on the album. Okay. Because you've written for songs for albums that didn't get on the album.
Sure, yeah.
But you were there, faithful, showing up, part of the process. How can I grow? How can I make this better? And I think that's a part of becoming a better songwriter. It's just you're not stopping. You're not writing songs to try and prove that you're a great songwriter. You're writing songs to become a better songwriter. And just seeing that develop over time.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
So one thing that, Lacey, I think we all share at the table is a love for like old hymns and old like hymn writers. And my favorite hymn writer is Henry Francis Lyte. And I know that Anne Steele has had a huge impact on your life.
Yep.
Can you talk to that, like things you've maybe learned from her writing or things that you've been inspired by her? I know you've done like extensive studying on Anne Steele.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially with old hymns, but particularly, like you said, Anne Steele, I love to look at their hymnals. That's a place where I find a lot of inspiration for songwriting. Just the ways they say things, it's just beautiful poetry. And a lot of her stuff we don't have like set to music. We don't know the original tunes that they would have sung. But yeah, just looking at the way that she talks about the gospel and the different angles she takes and even using other like old hymnals, whether it's Spurgeon's or whatever. But yeah, it's just so beautiful. And I think it challenges me to, okay, how can I say the truth, but in like creative ways,
Right.
and fresh ways that affect people to where they understand it, but they connect with it on a deeper level than just Christ died for me on the cross.
Would you say that her songs, because I'm not as familiar with like all the stuff she wrote, I should be, but I'm not, but that she knew how to deal with suffering. She knew how to deal with like trials, and she wrote a lot about that or through that.
Yeah, so she did write a lot on suffering. She personally suffered a lot, so had a lot of death in her family, had a lot of physical trials that left her bedridden for most of her life. There's definitely like a specific like bent in her writing towards suffering and God's sovereignty and how do I reconcile the fact that I'm a Christian, but I'm suffering, and what does God have to say about that? And specifically, she'll look at scripture and pull out, things she sees in there and truths that she sees. So, yeah.
Have you written songs based on specific Anne Steele hymns?
Yeah. So Mark Willerton, who also writes for Sovereign Grace Music, we did one called "We Trust in You," that we used a large portion of one of her hymns and then just added like a verse and a half to it.
Okay.
So cool. And so in that process, are you updating the verbiage, like taking the these and thous, and because I mean she was around a long time ago.
Yeah, so she was 18th century, but she actually didn't use a lot of Old English.
No way.
So like some of her contemporaries would have used more. So I find that a lot of her stuff it really fits, modern language, and you don't have to do a ton of finagling with it.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's just like our rich hymnody. There's just like, we sometimes have this temptation to think like, oh, all these new ideas are coming out, and we're seeing, and you go back to these old hymns and the truth, about suffering. And the sovereignty of God. You see, wow. I mean, they're wrestling with all these unbelievable truths, and to pull from them is just I love that you do that. And I love that you're going back to those old hymn writers. I just think there's such a wealth.
Oh my.
It's like a treasure trove that you unlock. And so that's so cool.
And I think their writing shapes your writing. So it's I think I learn not only from current people, but I think I learn from dead people.
That's really good.
About how to write, So when I'm looking at, the ways they craft sentences and phrases, it's like, okay, that gives me ideas for how to craft things that I'm writing with my own verbiage. So
good. And it was the age, so many of the hymns all of the older hymns were written, pre-internet, pre-social media, all the connectedness we have now. And they just spent a lot more time thinking. And so you read these thoughts, these hymns, these lyrics, and you just realize, oh wow, they really plumbed the depths of this.
Yes.
They thought about this from all these different angles, and it's so good for us to learn to do that, rather than just to look for the catchy phrase, the line that pops, and it's just like, no, these thoughts can change your life if you think these things, sing these things, know they're true. It can just affect your whole perspective and transform the way you think, the things you say, what you do. So it's a real noble aspiration to use, to benefit from the writings of those who are dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you're in the writing process, I'm always like really interested to think through like keys. And I'm a tenor, and so I'm writing in higher keys. And how do you approach that process of maybe you're singing lead on something and there's a male harmony, or are you writing? How do you think through keys in your writing process?
Well, isn't it more ranges? Like keys, you can always change the key.
For sure, ranges is a better way to say that.
Yeah, because Chris Tomlin does keys, and and all the songs he sings are like, woo,
in space,
and everybody just lower them, lower them.
Yes,
But the range,
good,
where guys can go low, girls can go high, and high, and women I think tend to be more contained. So, do you think about that?
Yeah, I think a lot about that. I do co-write with some girls, but I think largely I've co-written mostly with guys. And I usually get made fun of at how much I think I push them to think about, okay, like you're not dealing with just tenors.
Co-wrote?
No, Bob,
Okay,
never you.
just checking. Because I care about this
I know
so
you do.
much. It's like, why do we write songs with an octave and a fifth range?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just push them to think through that. And I feel like if you do it as you're writing the song, it's better. So I don't want to get this like incredible melody that we all love, but it's an octave and a fifth. And then you're going back in and you're like trying to chop things and figure out how to do that. I mean, you can.
Right.
But I just think if you have that in mind as you're writing, like, okay, I generally want to stick to an octave. And usually my chorus is the high point. So I don't want my verses to go crazy high, or, just kind of thinking about the overall landscape, I think is helpful.
Yeah.
And just realizing I think girls tend to want to sit in a more contained range than a guy does. So especially if the goal is for them to sing it on Sunday mornings, the average congregational member that's a woman she'll just stop singing, or they don't want to sing high. So
yeah.
I was just in Puerto Rico and recently, and doing kind of a workshop day with different bands and stuff, and the keys were unbelievably high.
Really.
And I was saying to him, we were doing evaluation. I was saying, that is such a problem for your ladies. They're gonna, how are you doing this? And then as the day went on, I realized all the ladies were singing
down the octave.
Yes, down an octave on those high parts. What's it called when the men and the women sing the exact same range notes? It's called something.
Yeah, I'm blanking.
Yeah, me too. But that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so they could do a song in the tenor key. They would just sing all those parts down an octave.
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess if you learn, it's fine, but I'm not sure that non-musicians are catching that.
Well, maybe it's a lot of jumping too.
Yeah, it is.
Back and forth. Yeah.
Right. Or at the point where it should be the high part of your range, and the chorus, you're going down.
Yep. Well, and I think people will think too, like, oh, the girls can just do the harmonies. Well, that's cool, but I still think you want to, like, as much as you can, set it up so that the women can sing a melody and don't feel like, oh, I have to jump down now and this is weird and what do I do? And so
I mean, in light of singing, in our range and things, not only are you such a predominant songwriter for Sovereign Grace Music and involved there, but even on Sunday mornings, how do you approach Sunday mornings singing at our church, and how do you think through melody and harmonies and?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I learned a lot when I came to Sovereign Grace Music under Bob.
Because I always am telling vocalists things over and over and over.
You do lean more vocal vocal than band arrangement.
It's my glad history. I'm glad. I'm glad about my history. And glad. I'm sorry.
Glad's great. So just I think thinking through like the structure. Okay, we're gonna sing unison on these parts of the songs, and don't add parts until later on. And
Second
then
chorus.
So why not add parts till later on?
yeah, so I think that helped me think through just like the congregational aspect of it. So especially if it's something they don't know, but even songs they know, I feel like it supports them more when you're early on all together singing that melody. So then they're comfortable, they know what it sounds like if they've forgotten or don't know it. And then just adding the parts later to give it some variation and beauty in the music, but you don't have to add them right away. So
Although you'd be happy to harmonize all the time. I mean, you could.
there's I think when I'm in the congregation singing on a Sunday morning, I would probably for sure harmonize more than I do when I'm in the band. But I just think having that perspective in the band of, okay, I'm serving the congregation, and how can I do that best to point them to Christ?
That's really great, because I think there might be a tendency to just go, well, I know the third, so I'll just sing it from the beginning.
Yep.
So I really like that, and it's also not only is it serving to reinforce the melody, but it's actually really giving the song somewhere to go too. Like it's sort of an arranging thing as well. That can be a really useful tool, and even on like establishing a bridge. It's like we're going to sing the melody on the bridge. And then we can add another part later. So that's an awesome perspective of how to even arrange on Sunday mornings.
And it's helpful when like vocalists think like that, because you don't have to spend a lot of time going back. Okay, let's do this. Let's. Everybody's thinking, no, we won't get this melody out. Again, in Puerto Rico, they were teaching. One group taught a new song, and halfway through the first verse, they were doing 3-part harmony. And there's no way we knew what like the melody was.
Yes.
And on the first chorus, everybody's doing 3-part harmony. And it's just harder to pick out. What is that exactly? Yeah. And we want the congregation to be confident. We want them to be, sure of what the melody is. So just giving it to them at least once helps that process. But Lacey is great at that. You've just been trained for a long time.
Trained for a long time, Bob. Almost a decade.
It's great. There's certain vocalists you're serving with, and it's just so easy. And we've done a lot together. We've done a lot for Sovereign Grace Music live streams and stuff like that, where we kind of remember being in COVID. Yeah, we had to we were doing those Thursday night live streams.
Yes,
and it's like okay. And we're talking about when do we do harmony, and because so much of that was unrehearsed, it was just okay. We're just doing it.
Yeah,
and I think you learn through those times.
That's so good.
Yep.
So, Lace, kind of one final question I wanted to ask for worship leaders that are listening to this podcast and have female singers on their team, maybe 2 or 3 even. How would you encourage them to how to communicate the parts that we're talking about, melody, harmonies, different ranges, like a tenor or soprano or an alto? Is there like a condensed way of communicating, giving them some advice?
Yeah. So at Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville, we usually have a guy, that can sing the tenor. And so we usually have 2 other girls. So they would sing melody and then alto. But we have had some Sundays where, for whatever reason, the girls need to do alto and tenor. So I think just knowing your vocalists, like, do we have women that can do a tenor? And then also I think knowing your vocalists in the sense of their ears and their training. So there's certain vocalists that they're great at melody, and just, a 1-hour rehearsal on a Sunday morning isn't really enough to teach them a tenor part. So I'm not going to ask them to do that. Just being familiar with their gifts and their abilities and make it the most effective. Yeah. And serve the congregation. So
That's awesome.
It's really helpful.
That's so helpful. Well, Lace, thanks for being on and for serving Sovereign Grace Music and Sovereign Grace churches.
Yes.
And we will have you back on for a second episode.
A special
great.
episode where we're going to talk about the songs that you contributed for our Christmas album, Heaven Has Come.
Yes.
Yep. Well,
Can't wait
thanks for having me.
Can't wait to talk about it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Sound Plus Doctrine, the podcast of Sovereign Grace Music. Sovereign Grace Music exists to produce Christ-exalting songs and training for local churches from local churches. For more information, free sheet music, translations, and training resources, you can visit us at sovereigngracemusic.org.